we're all here. Counselor Hill, will you read us out of closed session?
Yes. I move that this council certify by recorded vote that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session.
Second.
Ms. Thomas? Do you have to?
Counselor Payne?
Yes.
Counselor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Thank you. I now call this meeting to order, City Council meeting for December 21st, 2020. And we will observe a moment of silence. Thank you all. Ms. Thomas, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Payne?
Present.
Counselor Snook?
Present.
Mayor Walker is absent tonight. Vice Mayor Mcgill?
Present.
Counselor Hill?
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I invite a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Payne? Your volume is low. Okay. Counselor Snook?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill?
Yes.
Counselor Hill?
Yes.
Are there any announcements?
I was just going to announce, as we posted on Friday, the vacancy for the Police Civilian Review Board, and candidates must reside in the city of Charlottesville and may not be a city employee. The application deadline is January 22nd, 2021 at 5:00 p.m.
And there are a number of other boards and commissions that have openings coming up, and we do hope everyone looks to apply. I also wanted to make sure to announce that our utilities, our local utilities, have put out for application for if you need assistance with your gas and water utilities. Today, there was a city announcement about relief for that. So please, if you are struggling with your gas or water, please call the Public Utilities Office or look online to fill out the application. Are there any recognitions or proclamations at this time?
I would just say that during our earlier meeting, as part of the reports, that we did acknowledge that we have the EPA WaterSense Sustained Excellence Award, as well as the Circuit Court got LEED Gold certification for its renovation. So just thought I'd bring that up during our public meeting here.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, well, if we will, I'm going to invite a motion to approve the boards and commissions report of appointees.
Should they be read first?
Yes, I will make that motion. I move the council appoint the following to our boards and commissions. The Board of Architectural Review, Breck Gastinger. The Charlottesville Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau Executive Board, Jennifer Mayo. The Historic Resources Committee, Kay Slaughter. The Personnel Appeals Board, Phil Duranzio. The Rivanna River Basin Commission, Jason Halbert. The Rivanna Solid Waste Authority and Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority, Mike Gaffney. The Social Services Advisory Board, Cherry Stewart. And the Towing Advisory Board, Ashley Cullup and Bridget Hypes. That was a motion.
I'll second.
And just really briefly, I just want to just acknowledge there are some of the boards that we were anticipating making appointments to tonight, but we will be waiting for a little further period as there were a number of them that were not including city residents. And so we certainly are wanting to give opportunity for some of those positions, and we will be actively recruiting and then revisiting all applications.
Ms. Thomas, would you call the vote, please?
Counselor Payne,
Yes.
Counselor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Counselor Hill,
Yes.
That is unanimous vote. We are moving now to the consent agenda. Ms. Thomas, if you would read the consent agenda, please.
consent agenda, minutes, October 28th, joint city-county UVA meeting, November 2nd, closed and regular meeting. Ordinance 817 Nassau Street rezoning, second reading. Appropriation, fire truck insurance reimbursement, $21,214.18, second reading. Appropriation, Virginia Department of Social Services one-time funding for benefits programs, $16,877.19, first of two readings. Appropriation, staffing for adequate fire and emergency response, SAFER grant, $3,498,300, first of two readings. Appropriation, COVID-19 municipal utility relief grant to assist customers, $182,801.59, first of two readings. Resolution, refund of transient occupancy tax to a lodging entity, $29,865.60, one reading. Resolution, reallocation of highway safety improvement program funds, $246,946.54, one reading. Resolution, capital funding transfer for the remaining Penn Park tennis court renovations, funding, $86,105, one reading. Resolution, capital funding transfer for the Market Street retaining wall project, $223,450, one reading. Resolution, adoption of the 2021 City Council regular meeting schedule, one reading.
I'd move approval of the consent agenda.
Well, first we have to ask at the public.
Okay.
Mr. Wheeler, could you see if there's many members of the public who would like to speak on the consent agenda?
Sure. We have 24 people in the audience right now. If any of you would like to speak to one of those items on the consent agenda, click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. Each person will have up to 3 minutes to address council. And Vice Mayor Mcgill, I do not see any hands raised.
I'm inviting a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Now I'll move.
Second. Oh, sorry, Michael had it.
I heard Mr. Payne first.
Yeah.
Ms. Thomas, could you call for the vote, please?
Counselor Payne,
Yes.
Counselor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Counselor Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler, we now move, or I'm sorry, Mr. Blair, would love the city manager's response to community matters from previous meetings, please.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McGill. as Counselor Hill and you touched on earlier, I know at the last Community Matters, there were a number of speakers that asked about the current vacancy on the Police Civilian Review Board. As stated, that will be filled on, applications are due by January the 22nd. The second thing I'd like to do, we just had the consent agenda item. Let me make sure, consent agenda item number 6. And that is the CARES Act funding for municipal utility relief. And just want to bring that to the public's attention because that's a very important financial stopgap for a number of members of our community. If you're more than 30 days arrear in your utility bills, and that arrearage occurred between March the 30th and December 30th of this year, there is a program that's out there that, again, if you apply by January 8th, you may receive assistance on your arrearage. And it's just important for the public to know that that program is out there. And finally, it's my pleasure, I had asked today or tonight for our new fire chief, Dr. Hezadine Smith, to make some brief remarks to the council and to let you all know what he's seeing and his thoughts on the serving as the City of Charlottesville's fire chief for these past few weeks. So I see Dr. Smith's here and am happy to turn it over to him.
All right, good evening, everyone. Is my audio okay? Good deal. Happy holidays to each and every one of you and also to the community at large. As your new fire chief, I look forward to serving this community and solidifying the support from the City Council, the city's leadership team, all the departments, and the community of Charlottesville. We're hopeful that your unwavering commitment will continue as we close out the 2020 year with organizational changes, the COVID pandemic, and working mandatory overtime shifts. I've met with every member of the department over the past 21 days, and I'm happy to say that I'm proud of the men and women who serve this community selflessly. They remain committed to the citizens and the community, so we must work together to demonstrate our appreciation for the work that they do. It's a pleasure to be part of this community here in Charlottesville and a member of the CFD family. I want to say again, happy holidays to each of you, your family, our firefighters and their families as well, and to the citizens of this great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Smith.
Thank you, Chief Smith, and welcome very much to our community.
Thank you.
Mr. Blair, is that all for the city manager's report at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. At this point, then, I would like to open up our city council meeting to matters by the public. Mr. Wheeler, if you can take the wheel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mcgill. If you're in the audience and you would like to address council, click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. You can have up to 3 minutes to address council on any topic that's not on the agenda for a public hearing. And when you introduce yourself, please tell us your place of residence. As I mentioned before the meeting started, we had one person sign up in advance, and that's Jojo Robertson. We'll go to her first, and then we'll have another 15 slots available for the public who would like to speak. Jojo, you're on with City Council, and you've got 3 minutes.
Hi, Brian. I just wanted to point out, as we know, the holidays are here, and it's important to realize that our governor and has told us to stay home, and and it's not going to be a time in which families are actually going to gather. But it still doesn't mean it's a time where you can't check on people. So there might be elderly or disabled people that are in their homes and they're not going to be seeing their loved ones. And it's still important to reach out to them. The city can't reach out to them. there's no program, that goes out on Christmas Day or any of the other holidays. So just reach out and remember that, this year's going to be different, but you can still bring, happiness and kindness to people in your community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Walt Heinecke, who will be followed by Sean Tubbs and then Tanisha Hudson. Walt, you're on with City Council. You've got 3 minutes.
Thanks, Brian. First, I want to say happy holidays to all you members of council, Ms. Thomas, Mr. Blair, and all the city employees who've been doing a wonderful job. I know it's been a hard year where there have been lots of decisions that didn't have really, there weren't really many options. And I realize it's been a hard year, and I really appreciate your service during this kind of a year. And I hope you get some respite going forward. I wanted to talk a little bit about affordable housing in Charlottesville. I think affordable housing is actually one of the shining lights of, I think, what council's accomplished this year, committing around $10 million a year to affordable housing for such projects as expanding and rehabbing public housing and rehabbing Friendship Corridor are really, really important as we move forward to make the city a more equitable city. And as we try and stem displacement in the city, which is significant. That being said, I think, on the public housing side, you're doing a great job, but I'm wondering what's the responsibility for on the market side of our affordable housing strategy and plan. And most specifically, you're going to have an SUP coming up about Belmont Heights pretty soon. And I think it behooves you to do a really deep dive on how this approval of this particular SUP fits into an affordable affordable housing strategy and equity in this town. I think, if we look at what happened last year with this, when the landlord basically asked people to leave to allow for rehab, and then people came back, I'm not sure we know how equitable that return was in terms of how many people came back, at what level their rents were, to what extent were rents kept affordable at that location. And now you're going to be asked to approve a huge sort of addition to that project with increased density, a request for increased density, and most likely, the building of many units that will be at market rate or above. I know the landlord has talked about trying to keep some of the current rehabbed units at an affordable rate, but all we hear is 80%. And I don't think 80% of AMI is really affordable in this town for most people. And so I'm hoping in this SUP process, you get a little creative and a little bit earnest about trying to negotiate a better deal for folks who are struggling with rents in this town. I think, thinking about getting things down to 50% AMI would be, ideal.
I'm sorry.
Maybe.
Mr. Heinecke, I'm sorry, we've gone past the 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, just closing, maybe entering into some kind of a memo of understanding with the landlord about the use of vouchers would also be helpful going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Quickly to respond to one of the specific questions, at the Planning Commission, I inquired, and the information I received is that 80 to 90% of the tenants who had been living there before the current owner began rehab no longer live there. So that's that number.
Thank you, Councilor Payne. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler.
Yep. Vice Mayor Mcgill, next up will be Sean Tubbs, followed by Tanisha Hudson, and then Don Gathers. Sean, you're on with City Council, and you've got 3 minutes.
Well, gosh. Well, hello, everybody. I won't take up all 3 minutes of that. I basically just wanted to say hello. I began the year one way and I'm finishing it up a different way. Obviously, I'm not here in that capacity, but I'm here as a citizen of the city of Charlottesville to just thank you for all of the work that you've all done, staff and council, this very difficult year, to adjust to everything that you've needed to adjust to in very difficult times. I am not going to appear here very much more. This is probably the last time I'll ever speak to council in this capacity, but I really just wanted to take this opportunity on a slower night, again, to really thank you for doing the work that you do, and also, to tackle the hard problems. You guys are the ones who have to make the decisions. Speaking from that second role that I'm in now, I'm the one who writes about them. And I wanted to take just this holiday moment to just say thank you. We have some difficult times ahead of us, but I am confident we're going to get through them by talking and documenting it and working together. At least that's what I hope. Anyway, that's it. Happy holidays, and let's all have a good 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tubbs.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, next up is Tanisha Hudson. Tanisha, you're on with the City Council and you've got 3 minutes.
Hello, Tanisha Hudson here. Can you guys hear me okay? Because this Wi-Fi kind of sucks.
We can.
We can.
Okay. So first off, happy holidays to the entire city of Charlottesville. I will not individually name people on council because it's clear where we stand with one another at this point. I do want to say that I need you all to go into 2021 by really being real with yourself and stop being fake, okay? You can welcome Mr. Hezedine Smith all you want. Some of you definitely didn't want him here, okay? I'm a realist and I like to be real about everything, as you all know, and I spend a lot of money to be real and to tell the truth. Now, another thing that you all need to go into 2021 and stop doing is picking and choosing who you want to give credit to and when you want to put somebody on Front Street, because I can recall many a times where Dr. Richardson was put on Front Street for the chief of police, instances that she should have had to answer to that she did not. So let's talk about the latest instance with her press conference. This is not her first press conference. Let's go back to the beginning of the year with Mr. Robert Pryor. She accused the young man of being a Unabomber, riding around with an explosive device. She did not give that young man an apology, and she's demanding for church clergy members to lose their job and to publicly apologize and accuse them of using their privilege to do what they did. Well, what did she do with Mr. Pryor? It's the pot calling the kettle black. But the mayor not going to put her on front screen. Heather not going to put her on front screen. Cena not going to do it. Lloyd not going to do it. And Mike not going to do it. But if it was Dr. Richardson, because I hate to go back here, but I'm going to keep going back because the world needs to know that there was a plan in place for that man to no longer have his job. The world needs to know that that expensive FOIA request that was extremely redacted, that I should have been charged $200 for, had all of y'all little sad stories right up in there. Heather, you and the car text messages told a lie. I believe that was even after y'all signed y'all non-disclosure agreement, y'all was still having conversation, which you shouldn't have been, but you did it anyway. And I got more coming. So once again, I hope that moving into 2021, y'all can be real with yourself. You put Chief Brackney on front screen like you did everybody else, make her answer for her mishaps like you do everybody else, that y'all stand up and be leaders and stop being weak because you're weak. You're weak counsel. And instead of you asking questions as a leader and being a leader and thinking for yourself, you all get together, bundle together because you get bullied on and you get picked on and you make decisions because you are afraid. You side with people who are absolutely wrong. And we know why the mayor not going to put the police chief on front screen, because she begged for the lady to get the job. She don't want to be wrong about who she hired. She don't want the world talking about the person that she fought for to get here. Yes, we know she didn't pick Dr. Richardson, but she did pick Chief Brackney. And I believe Chief Brackney has done a lot more than Dr. Richardson. So when you weigh your options moving into 2021, and you know how we all like to have these New Year's resolutions and get rid of the baggage and the bad things in our life, and we want to start fresh, I hope y'all start fresh with saying, who's worse, Chief Brackney or Dr. Richardson? Are you really mad that you didn't get a budget?
Hudson, I let
Are
you
you
go.
really mad that you let Walt go too? I'm closing.
I know.
Are you really mad that you didn't? Are you mad that you didn't get the money that you asked for, or that your friends didn't get the money that bad, that you wanted to take somebody's job? Or are you mad at somebody that completely embarrasses the city as a chief of police? Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Ms. Hudson.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, can I just point out that we do not have any non-disclosure agreement? I think what she may be referring to is the redactions that come because of the FOIA, the dimensions of what is FOIA-able, but council never signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Snook. Mr. Wheeler?
Yep, right now we have one additional hand up. If you'd like to speak to council, just click the raise hand icon to get in line. Next up is Don Gathers. Don, you're on with City Council. You've got 3 minutes.
Good evening, council and everyone. I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. I pray that that 2021 is a much better year for all of us than 2020 was. As we look towards 2021, I truly think that it would behoove us all, everyone in the city, if council would just take a deep inward look, say maybe we were wrong, maybe we jumped the gun, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to ask Dr. Richardson to come back. No disrespect whatsoever to Mr. Wheeler. I'm sure he's doing any and everything that he possibly can to keep all the oars in the water and keep the boat afloat. But it's nothing wrong. It shows leadership when you admit that you made a mistake. And I think that asking him to come back would be a huge boondoggle for the city and get us back on track in regards to everything that we're dealing with as a community, excuse me, including the pandemic. And also as we look towards the budget tonight and what to do with some of the surplus of funds, I really think that it would be great if the city took some sort of bold step and initiative and look towards doing something with some portion of that money, at least, towards helping the homeless population here in the area. I think that oftentimes that group is overlooked. I'm appreciative of the efforts towards affordable housing and towards public housing. If we have some extra money sitting somewhere, let's see what, if anything, we could do with helping the homeless in the area. We're going into, today's the first day of winter, and we've already seen some wintry mix and wintry snowfall and ice. So I think that we really need to keep that population in the forefront of our minds. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful and safe holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Gathers.
Our sixth speaker will be Robin Hoffman. Robin, you're on the City Council and you've got 3 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Happy holidays and happy new year, healthy new year to you. Also, I want to very much congratulate the communications department. They are amazing. I mean, talking about adapting, like really crazy, did everything really fast to get us all to be able to talk and communicate. An awesome job. Also, I want to remind people that what happened in the housing of New York City within the last 10 years, where they gentrified everybody out. And now during the coronavirus, let this be a lesson, they don't have any service people. They can't get people to come and service because the people that service everybody, including teachers, can't afford to live in New York City. So let that be a lesson when we talk about housing and making sure that everybody can afford to live here, everybody. And then also what I wanted to add was that UVA, PVCC, and K-Tech are offering free online classes because of the CARES Act. If everybody would just take one course, they would feel better. You could take anything, ceramics, whatever you want. Please look into the UVA nursing school, especially. You don't have to go through a lot of standards of prerequisite courses anymore. UVA lowered their standards for nursing school, again, because of the CARES Act, I think. And then, of course, you can get a job there, not as a nurse, but as something else, to be able to get into the program and get free education. And then also want to say that the new coronavirus that's out, no traveling in Europe, I think that's also something that we need to pay attention to. Again, it's so obvious between the masks not being worn in some states in the United States and the fact that people traveled on Thanksgiving. I'm home because of those people. And so I'm really upset about it because also people are dying and getting sick forever with this virus. So hopefully with the vaccine, I believe that the vaccine is very good. They have been looking at this science for a long time. They cured sickle cell anemia with this science and many other different types of diseases. It's are curable because of the science. So people should trust, I believe, as a nurse myself for many, many years, working in research and that sort of thing, in the virus. I mean, in the, in the vaccine. And that's about it. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman.
Council, we have 2 more hands raised right now. If you'd like to get in line to speak, click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. Next up is Matthew Gilligan. Matthew, you're on with City Council and you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening, councilors. This is Matthew Gilligan. I live at 726 Orange.
Whoops. Matthew, I hit the wrong button there. Are you back?
I think so.
Okay, my apologies.
No problem. Good evening, council. This is Matthew Gilligan. I live at 726 Orangedale Avenue. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the police budget, and in particular that I have some exciting news. After 6.5 months of asking for a detailed line item budget, today I think I finally may have received it. My journey towards finding a line item budget for the Charlottesville Police Department started on June 2nd of this year when I requested a detailed budget. I was given in exchange a link to the city's budget in reference to 7 lines of that budget and told that was the most detailed budget that was available for the police department. When I said I didn't think that was enough, maybe there was more information. Eventually some more information came out and we got about 30 lines of budget information, which still raised a lot of questions about how did that further break down? There's got to be different parts of this department, got to be different explanations. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, I asked via email Chief Brackney for an explanation of our budget and a justification for it as we try to think about how we would develop our budget for this next year. She declined to answer that question and punted it to City Council and the City Manager's office. In the midst of that reply all situation, there was a reference to some documents that were generated as part of the zero-based budgeting. So I asked for those documents. Those documents provided a level of detail that I had not seen before, nor had the public seen from what I could tell. And out of those documents, I asked for another document. And today I received that document, and I think we have the closest thing I've seen to a line item budget, maybe the actual line item budget. It's about 200 lines worth of information about how the police department spends its money, including salaries all the way down to trophies, for which there were about $500 spent for this year or budgeted for this year. So my questions are, why did it take 6.5 months for this information to come to me via about 6 FOIA requests? Why wasn't this information put out in front of council long ago? Why wasn't this information put out in front of the public long ago when people were asking for it? This information was presumably existed prior to this year's budget being approved, since it's one of the foundation pieces for the police budget. I look forward to hearing responses from the budget office and everyone else who can explain why I wasn't provided this information, and the citizens and the leadership of the city were not provided this information months and months ago, so we could be having more productive conversations about police funding, how we might want to think about how that funding fits into our vision for the city, and what we might want to do next in terms of thinking about other ways to spend this money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gilligan.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, next up is Elizabeth Stark. Elizabeth, you're on with City Council and you've got 3 minutes.
So this is actually Brian Campbell, her husband. We share a computer. I am speaking about Chief Brackney's press conference. I was shocked to see it. For a public official to call for religious leaders to be removed for calling the police to be accountable is something that honestly I never thought that I would see. It's wildly inappropriate at the very least, and I assume could be opening the city up to legal action as well. There's nothing in the heavily edited account that the heavily edited video that the police have shared that contradicts the original complaint. I'm shocked that seeing that the police, having seen what happened in that video, rather than holding their own officers accountable, chose to attack religious leaders in Charlottesville. And I would hope that the city council would censure her or speak on this at the very least. And I stand in solidarity with other groups that have called for more formal punishments for Chief Brackney. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
If there's anyone else who would like to speak to council tonight, please click the raise hand icon. Got a couple more hands going up. First, we'll go to Abby Guskind. Abby, you're on with City Council. You've got 3 minutes.
Hi, Brian. Hi, City Council. Just wanted to wish everybody a happy holiday and a safe and healthy new year. Oh, gosh, there's so much that I want to say, and I only have 3 minutes. I'm just going to make it short and sweet. I'm not sure what's going on with City Council, with our mayor, with our chief of police. It's really become such a toxic environment. There were so many people in this community that went to bat for all of you, sitting on City Council, asking to unmask this illusion. And there's just so much garbage that's just been thrown in a trash pile, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And nobody seems to really want to tackle the really hard problems that are here in the city. And I'm not sure why. The last time I was on City Council, I just saw all of your faces. There was like no color whatsoever left in it. I don't know why you all aren't talking with one another, why you aren't getting things done. The toxicity that's behind closed doors has to stop. I'm beyond enraged as to why Dr. Richardson is no longer here in the city. I want to piggyback off of Don Gathers and his comments. I would love for you all to just swallow whatever you need to and get him back here in Charlottesville. I would love to see you forget about this ridiculous parking garage and put all the money and the effort behind the public housing issues that our community members so desperately need. I mean, you have people struggling here in our city, and not a whole lot is getting done. And why a parking garage is on the hit parade list that really needs to be addressed. Moving into 2021, I just hope that you all can work with one another a lot better. I don't know what you all are frightened of or scared of, or why nobody can actually use their own voice, but there was a lot of foot traffic that that people in the community did for all of you to be sitting there, to work in the community together, not be afraid, because there's way too much bullying going on. And I am just absolutely disgusted by the Chief Brackney's words that she used against the church members as well. I really hope that you all just do better, learn by your mistakes, and just work on the promises that you made to all of the community members. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Guskin.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, our 10th speaker will be Lakisha Washington, who will be followed by Katrina Turner. Lakisha, you're on the City Council. You've got 3 minutes.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Lakisha Washington, and I reside at 1222 Smith Street. I am not sure if this is the appropriate time, but I just wanted to talk about the surplus for this fiscal year. I really hope that you all will consider looking at how to make our housing situation in Charlottesville a lot better. I wrote a letter, or I emailed you all today, but I know it's just today, so I don't expect you to read it today. But basically what I am hoping for is that we look at how to make Charlottesville a more affordable place for everyone, and how to look at the homelessness situation that we are facing. Before COVID, we had a homeless population, and it's just increased because people are losing their jobs and are not able to afford rent. And so I hope that we get creative with how we support the citizens in Charlottesville with housing, and how we make it more affordable, not just now during this pandemic, but moving forward, because this is a nice place for people to live. But the common thing that a lot of people say is it's just not affordable. That is all I have to say, and I hope you all will find the time to read my email as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. And actually, I did read your email already today.
I did as well. Thank you.
So did I.
Our next speaker is Katrina Turner. Katrina, you're on the City Council. You've got 3 minutes.
How is everybody doing? Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm calling about the Chief Brackney conference. That was one of the most disturbing press conferences I've seen, for her to ask for the church members to resign, because of something that was told to them. I'm pretty sure that when the church members said that they did not write this letter without the acknowledgement of Mr. Hoffman, there's no way I'm going to believe anything the chief of police or the mayor says. We've been complaining about the chief of police literally since she's been here, because her words that she wasn't going to think about anything that happened before she got here. Just so many things that has come out of her mouth. There are so many discrepancies in what she said in her press conference and what the body cam shows. You know, she only showed a little snippet of the body cam. But if you look at the full body cam, when she says that 5 officers weren't there, 5 officers were there at the end. So she has been allowed to lie, and I'm not going to say make mistakes. She has been allowed to lie on so many community members, and we have asked for apologies, but no one has made her step up and do what she was supposed to do. But now she's asking for resignations, apologies. What about her? Where is the mayor tonight? You know, she keeps taking up for this chief of police. She's coming at the community, asking the community, why can't we support this chief of police? Why is the community against this chief of police? If you all listen to the mayor's words, if the community is against the chief of police, what do we do to get rid of the chief of police? Can you tell us that? What steps do we need to take to get rid of both the chief of police and the mayor? How many signatures do we need? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Turner.
And is there anyone else who would like to speak to council tonight? You can click the raise hand icon. I don't see any other hands. Vice Mayor Mcgill.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. What time is it now? 7:20. When do we normally take? We normally take a break at 8.
Like 10 of 8, yeah.
So let's continue on. We've got a couple of. Then our next action item is the public hearing ordinance Dominion Energy Underground Easement for Sugar Hollow. One reading, waiving the second reading. Ms. Hildebrand, Director of Utilities, if you would mind presenting.
Yes, can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor and councilors, the city, as the owner of the Sugar Hollow Reservoir property, has been requested to approve an easement to allow undergrounding of utilities near the Sugar Hollow Dam as part of Dominion's strategic underground program efforts to protect the electrical supply to critical facilities and in difficult to maintain facilities. The easement is to install a new electrical line underground adjacent to the road that will replace an above ground electrical line. Charlottesville Parks and Recreation and Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority staff have reviewed the proposed easement and survey and have no concerns with providing the easement. This contributes to Objective 3.2 of the strategic plan to provide reliable and high quality infrastructure. A public hearing is required by law to give the public an opportunity to comment on the proposed conveyance of a public interest. Staff recommends approval of the easement to Dominion Energy in the Sugar Hollow Reservoir property. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Ms. Hildebrand. Council, are there any clarifying questions at this point? Then I open this to the public hearing. Mr. Wheeler, could you check with the public and see if there is anyone who would like to speak on this item?
If you'd like to address council in the public hearing, click the raise hand icon. And I don't see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Then I will close the public hearing and invite a motion.
I would move approval of the easement.
Second.
Does anybody want to discuss anything?
Seems pretty straightforward.
All right, Ms. Thomas, if we could have a vote, please.
Councilor Payne,
Yes.
Councilor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Councillor Hill.
Yes.
All right. So then our next public hearing or ordinance is the Eagle franchise agreement renewal, first of two readings. Mr. Blair, I invite you to present.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mcgill. And again, very much like the easement that preceded this, this is another 5-year extension. It's necessary per the Code of Virginia for Eagle Real Estate to extend their franchise agreement with the city. The only change from this agreement and the 2015 agreement, which was also for 5 years, is that the bond amount has been reduced from $25,000 to $10,000. And that reduction, as stated in the council memo, is due to there have not been any issues with this particular franchisee when any issue has arisen concerning the right-of-way. There has not been any lag time or any real delay in any request that has been made of them. And again, this does require a public hearing per state code.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Are there any council? Are there any clarifying questions? Okay. Mr. Wheeler, I'd like to open this matter for the public hearing.
If you'd like to address council on item number 13, the Eagle franchise agreement, click the raise hand icon. And I don't see any hands raised.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Then I will close this matter for public hearing. Council, any discussion? All right. Then this will not need a vote. It will be moved. Do we agree for it to be moved to the January 19th consent agenda at this time?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Item number 14, public hearing, resolution, standard lease agreement for commercial space, one reading. Invite Mr. Chris Engel, Director of Economic Development, to present.
Good evening, councilors. As mentioned, this item is for a approval via resolution of a standardized form to lease commercial spaces. This happens particularly at Market Street facility where we have some privately leased spaces. And this item also requires a public hearing, and the form that has been drafted by the city attorney's office is included in this document, as well as the resolution approving that. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have if you have them.
Council, are there any clarifying questions from council?
I have none.
Mr. Wheeler, I'd like to open this for public hearing then, please.
If you'd like to speak to council about item number 14, the standard form lease agreement, click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. Remember back in the old days when we had sign-up sheets?
Yeah. Feels like forever ago.
Showing your age.
I don't see any hands raised.
All right, I will close this for public hearing.
I do have one thing I wanted to clarify. Something that Mayor Walker had brought up when she and I talked about the agenda was we aren't limiting how often these can be renewed, correct?
Limiting.
I'm sorry, I don't have it. She mentioned it in passing, and I'm trying to find it in the documentation that there was a certain length of time, but we're not limiting, like, people can go in perpetuity as long as we keep renewing these agreements. There's no limits on these arrangements. That's what my understanding was. I just wanted to clarify because that was a question that was raised by one of my colleagues.
Yes and no. This document allows a 5-year lease.
Yes.
Signed, but it can be renewed.
Renewed, yeah.
Beyond that, and either the attorneys could correct me, but beyond that, the city can enter into longer term leases. They require an additional public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
I would tend to say that renewal isn't the correct term, but
people can enter into successive 5-year leases.
Okay.
Once you start adding up renewals, that's technically legally considered a longer term that might require council approval. But certainly there's an indefinite number of 5-year leases that could be entered into in succession.
Thank you for clarifying.
One question that brings up, it occurs to me that I don't know who is leasing city space, or whether it would be a legitimate request to say maybe once a year to get a report from somebody telling us who's leasing city space, and just so we know what's going on. Would that be a fair request?
I think so. I would imagine Mr. Engel would agree.
Yeah, it currently doesn't exist, but that could certainly be put together.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do anything onerous. I have no idea what y'all are doing down there.
Good.
Any further discussion?
I'd move the approval if we need. I guess we need to approve the form of the agreement. Is that the deal?
Yes.
So moved.
And then, okay, well, and now I ask council for discussion. And if there's no discussion, then I will call for a vote. Ms. Thomas, would you take the vote?
I don't think, did anybody second me?
Yes, Heather did.
Okay. Okay.
Counselor Payne,
Yes.
Counselor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McGill,
Yes.
Counselor Hill,
And that passes then, unanimous vote. All right. Item number 15. Public hearing as well. What time is it? Okay.
7:30.
All right.
Right along.
Fiscal year 2020 year in adjustments, second reading. Mr. Cullinan, Chris Cullinan, Director of Finance, if you would present, I would appreciate it.
Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor, members of council. This agenda item is the public hearing and second of 2 readings on the council appropriation for the year-end adjustments for fiscal year 2020. The audit for 2020 has been completed, and as you heard at your last council meeting, our auditors did confirm an unmodified or clean audit opinion for FY 2020. The general fund ended the fiscal year at an operating loss of about 1.8 million. COVID-19 had a significant impact on our large economically sensitive revenues such as meals tax, sales tax, lodging tax. But overall, the general fund balance finished with a positive surplus of $3.9 million. Staff's recommendation per city policy is that amount in full be transferred to the CIP contingency account. And we recommend no further uses of these funds be obligated at this time, given the impacts that COVID continues to have on the city's finances, on our current year revenues, and our ability to transfer cash to the capital's project fund, coupled with the projected future capital expenditures and infrastructure needs the city has, and which obviously you all have discussed at a recent work session and will be taking up again as we head into the FY21 budget development. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cullinan. And as I understand it, while we do have the surplus, as it was brought up in the previous report meeting, we have already had to reshuffle this year's budget a number of times, and what we consider to be a reserve, which was actually our CIP budget for this year, is already 3/4 accounted for now. And we still don't know what our B-poll taxes will be like in the coming January month. Counselors, does anybody else have anything they'd like to either discuss or ask at this point?
Like I said last month or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, that I thought we ought to just do exactly what staff is recommending. And I would note to those who have said, why don't you put some of this towards affordable housing or homeless relief or something like that, we may end up having to do that. And we may end up doing that. I don't know. One of the purposes of that reserve was to not only protect against lost revenues, but also to protect against increased expenses that might come from COVID. And so we also, at this point, we don't know what funds are going to be coming from the feds, whether there will be, I mean, apparently there's not going to be any direct relief to cities in this most recent $900 billion bill that hopefully will pass tonight. But under the Biden administration, there may be additional relief. So I think that this is the prudent course for now. And I think we should go ahead and approve it, approve the staff recommendation.
Madam Vice Mayor, if I could just make one additional comment, is that any use of the CIP contingency has to come back to council for that decision. So
right.
It really is just going to go off as a reserve in cash for whatever future priority, unseen need there might be for your consideration.
As I understand it, it's a good place to park money right now while we wait and see how bad things keep getting.
That's a good thought. Cash is always good to have on hand. And I mean, one other thing I would add is that not only is this policy financially prudent, it's also a multiplier in that we're taking essentially a one-time event, and it's going to be used to procure infrastructure, which by its very nature has 10, 20, 30 years of benefits and use to it. And so it certainly has a multiplier effect in that regard as well.
We have a public hearing next.
Right. I just wanted to see if there was any other questions. Then if there are no more clarifying questions from council, I would like to open this up to the public hearing. Mr. Wheeler, if there's anybody in the public who would like to speak on this.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mcgill. If the public would like to speak to item number 15, the fiscal year 2020 year-end adjustments, click the raise hand icon to get in line. And I do not see any hands raised.
Then I will close this matter from public hearing. And I invite a motion.
I would move approval of putting the 3.9 million in the CIP contingency fund.
Is there a second?
I think our motion has to be maybe just all of the year-end adjustments, no?
I believe the motion is to approve the fiscal year 2020 year-end adjustments.
Okay, we'll restate it that way. It's fine without being the specific amount.
Is there a second?
I second.
Counselor, is there any other discussion that should be had?
Nope.
I think the one other thing I will mention is that in the CIP, with the affordable housing, I know people, we've had a couple of public speaking earlier about affordable housing and homelessness. And a lot of our affordable housing work is coming out of our CIP budget. So again, it is giving some of that flexibility as well. Ms. Thomas, if you would take the vote.
Counselor Payne,
Yes.
Counselor Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes,
Counselor Hill,
Yes.
that vote passes unanimously. Item number 16, public hearing appropriation, Charlottesville City Schools budget amendment, grant funding, $2,787,563, first of two readings. I see that we have a representative from the school division, Dr. Atkins, here tonight, as well as Kim Powell and Renee Hoover present. Ms. Powell, I understand you will be introducing this item tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mcgill, members of council, and Mr. Blair. Brian, I don't know if you'd like to show the summary slide for the public to follow along. Thank you. So as you addressed in your consent agenda with the city receiving CARES funding, thankfully the schools have also received quite a bit of CARES funding as well to help with the pandemic. What you see here is that since August, we received 4 different CARES allocations. One of those 4 came actually through the city to us, and those funds were targeted at facilities upgrades for COVID mitigation, things like water bottle fill stations, portable HEPA air filter units, things of that nature. And then there were 3 CARES allocations that came directly to the schools through the Virginia Department of Education. They're all listed here. There also is one item listed here that was a significant grant that we received from a private foundation. And this grant was also very timely, although it's not directly related to CARES. It's targeted for student supports and specifically to hire licensed clinical social workers, which we have been doing in the process of hiring 5. And these staff members are being deployed at Walker, Beaufort, and CHS. And so it's a wonderful time. Certainly before COVID, we definitely welcome additional student supports, and now it's more important than ever. So you can see what comprises that 2.7, almost $2.8 million. And so I'm here tonight along with Renee Hoover, our finance director, and Dr. Atkins is here as well. So you've got the whole crew if there are any questions that we can answer for council.
Counselors, are there any questions at this time?
Questions I have are more broad beyond tonight in terms of just how some of this might impact budgeting moving forward, but I don't think this is the appropriate time to get into that level of detail. So we'll broach that when we have our joint meeting.
I have a number of budget questions, but they're sort of outside the scope of these specific CARES Act allocations.
If there are no clarifying questions from council at this point, Mr. Wheeler, I would like to open this to the public hearing.
If you'd like to speak to council about item number 16, the Charlottesville City Schools budget amendment, please click the raise hand icon. And if you're watching via Facebook, you can register for Zoom webinars at charlottesville.gov/Zoom to participate in public hearings like this. Vice Mayor Mcgill, I don't see any hands raised.
Then I will close the public hearing. Council, are there any who would like to discuss this at this point? All right, there's no vote on this item. It will be moved to the January 19th consent agenda if everyone agrees. Is there any disagreement on that matter?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Excellent. We will go forward then.
We will see the schools in January.
Have a good holiday, y'all.
Thank you.
And whatever you celebrate. Number 17. This is it's a resolution appropriation, the closeout of coronavirus aid relief and economic security, the CARES Act funds, and appropriation of interest income. Mr. Cullinan, Director of Finance, if you would please present.
Good evening again, Madam Vice Mayor, members of council. As the Vice Mayor mentioned, this agenda item closes out the city's approximately $8.2 million of CARES funds that really received as part of the funds of state and local governments that were part of the broader CARES Act. These funds came through the Commonwealth on a per capita basis. And the CARES Act required that funds used for this be incurred by December 30th of 2020. There are two actions that you're being asked to consider this evening. One is to adopt a resolution reallocating funds that have not been incurred in the funding categories for which they were originally appropriated. And then secondly, the first of two readings to appropriate approximately $7,000 of interest income earned while the CARES Act's funds were in the city's account. And so just as a point of a little bit of background, as I mentioned, the city received approximately $8.2 million from the Commonwealth in two separate but equal tranches of approximately $4.1 million. Council, based on staff recommendations, allocated those funds into several very broad categories to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 on our community. Approximately $1.65 million went to business support, $1.7 million to community support, a little over $800,000 to employee support, a little over $1 million to technology, approximately $2.4 million to operational modifications, a little over $500,000 in a contingency reserve account, and $100,000 from an employee assistance program. As of the writing of this memo, which was late last week, we had approximately $915,000, which was unspent from those various categories. And then approximately $7,000 of projected accrued interest income that is also available for reallocation. So a total of $921,523. However, as I note in the memo, that specific number is likely to change because we obviously have a few days left while these funds are being spent. And so we'll have some invoices coming in. Some things may not be quite as much as we thought they were, but I do believe that number represents a good order of magnitude. And I don't anticipate that number changing in any sort of material way. With me this evening are the various team leads. These are staff members who sort of headed up each of these different areas. And I just want to introduce them and recognize them. Chris Engel from Economic Development, Sunny Wang from our IT department, Marty Silman from Public Works, and Kaki Dimmick from Human Services. And I also want to publicly thank them and memorialize their involvement in this. This was a huge undertaking. We got these funds in, began getting them in late June and had a deadline 6 months later. And, it's challenging enough to procure things and plan things in a thoughtful way and make sure that you're being the best steward of the public funds while at the same time dealing with a pandemic and a virus that seems to change every day. And while still trying to do their same jobs and all of the stresses associated with that and of course, things at home. So those folks are on the call this evening. I wanted to thank them, but they're also here to answer any questions you might have about any specific items in those categories, should you have them. Staff is recommending that for the remaining approximately $922,000, that those funds be used to partially reimburse the city for a portion of public safety payroll costs for police, fire, and sheriff since July 1st of 2020. This is an allowed use under the CARES Act. It's a very straightforward accounting exercise, something we can easily accomplish before the deadline. And just to give you some perspective, the city has spent a total of about $11.5 million in public safety payroll since July 1st of this year. So this covers roughly 8% of that, certainly not all of it. But as I mentioned, this recommendation will make sure that we fully expend the funds on eligible uses by December 30th. And then secondly, it provides the general fund some budgetary relief and capacity in the current fiscal year. And to be very clear, we're not using CARES funds to replace general fund revenues. That is an explicitly not allowed use of the CARES Act. It can't be used for revenue replacement, but we are transferring these expenses from the general fund to the CARES Act fund is the actual action that's going to take place here. but in many ways has the same net effect in terms of giving the general fund some budgetary relief and capacity in the current fiscal year. That concludes my presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions as well as the team leads. Any questions you might have. Thank you.
Well,
Counselors,
Thank you.
questions?
First of all, I just want to say thank you to this team and obviously the teams that support each of you. Here we are. I just can't believe it's December 21st. Like, while this year feels like it's flown by, it also feels like it's taken a decade to get through. So just really appreciate the stamina that you all have had through this. And I'm hoping that everyone after this is going to be able to take a much needed little break or at least a step back. I know that one of my colleagues asked about, we know that we were given administrative days to all employees, and some classifications, including our fire department, namely, are unable to take those because of just our own constraints. And I was just kind of curious of staff's perspective on how we can, is there anything we can do in this realm to kind of accommodate that? I think my preference would be that people have the option, if they still want to take the time off, that we do extend that, which is what Mr. Blair, I think, has proposed. I've lost track of who said what when. And I certainly think that seems like it's the first preference of folks, but not sure how realistic that is. But I'm just trying to understand kind of where staff is on that question that Mayor Walker posed.
Well, let me jump in here and offer that, number one, we want to extend the time so it doesn't expire. I think this conversation may loop back to your previous conversation about the year-end appropriation. Obviously, what's going on now should help the overall general fund budget. I think what we may do is look at, again, just like the year-end appropriation, if at the end of February that there's capacity, we may look at something like coming back to council with recommendations that could include perhaps purchasing a day of administrative leave. And we don't want to say anything right now that's definitive, because you don't want to obviously get employees' hopes up that there's going to be something like that, when realistically, again, I think we just have to look at that January and February. When you look at the nation's health situation, it's not improving right now. The case count and seems to only be getting worse. And if that's the case, we could be seeing more restrictive measures, which ultimately, without additional CARES Act funding from Washington, are probably going to result in decrease in some of our major revenue sources.
And I think just my own questions along this is just understanding that I know even when those days were granted to employees back in the early summer, that I know that we did hear from CFD, and just trying to understand like what ways that they would be able to take advantage of those, whether it's now or in the future. And I want to make sure that we're whole with all of our employees consistently relative to those administrative days. And I know that when we get more, I know that we have plans in the future for there to be additional resources in the CFD, which I think will allow for more flexibility, but we're still a little ways off from that becoming a reality. I think Chief Smith, I'm sorry, you want to speak?
Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, while we appreciate the consideration and the thoughts, as you well know, our staff currently, we don't have the luxury of taking time off. And for the foreseeable future, really, until we hire those 15 firefighters, which will well beyond that period of time that's being discussed, I think a consideration and a preference, from what I understand from meeting with every one of my firefighters and officers, is that some consideration be made as it relates to compensation for those period of time, those 3 days or so, versus bank it for the future, versus realistically taking advantage of those opportunities within this fiscal year. So that's our position on that.
Thank you.
I guess just first off, would likewise want to thank city staff. I know it's been a very chaotic year with a lot of negative things going on, but there's still a lot of important work going on behind the scenes. And I think the way we've been able to allocate this CARES Act money is a major part of that. And our investments in emergency support, food security, support for homelessness and housing, the emergency relief fund, renovating city facilities to be ready for COVID are all an incredible amount of work that's had a real positive impact in the community. So just want to highlight that. The only question I have is just a real simplified way of thinking about it is basically like, given the terms of the legislation, we have a few days left to expend money, and doing this allows us to expend it in a way that's allowed under the CARES Act, and that this will have the net benefit of, because these are expenses we may need to make anyway, provide some flexibility if revenues don't rebound, or if they do rebound, open up opportunities to have more money in the city budget to spend on housing, the capital improvement projects budget, various priorities, and just that being the net impact and logic behind council making this decision.
I couldn't have said it any better. The only thing I would just amend is these are actually expenses that you've already incurred. These are public safety. This is public safety payroll we've already paid out. So we're using the CARES funds to reimburse ourselves for those expenses.
Counselors, are any other clarifying questions? Now, I don't see a public hearing on this, as I believe we had the public hearing the last meeting.
So you actually had the public hearing when you appropriated each of the tranches of these funds. It's really just reallocating money that's already been appropriated. That's the resolution, and then the appropriation is only approximately $7,000, so it doesn't require a public hearing.
But we need to vote on each of those things independently?
We have to vote on the resolution and the appropriation independently, yes.
Okay.
So right now I'm inviting a motion for the CARES Act allocation unspent funds.
Yeah, I move we adopt the resolution for the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Act CARES funds allocation of unspent funds.
Is there a
second?
Council, is there any further discussion? Never mind. Yes, that's correct. Ms. Thomas, I'm calling for a vote.
Councilor Payne,
Yes.
Councilor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Councilor Hill,
Yes.
All right, now we're at the appropriation. Are there any clarifying questions from council about the interest accrual of CARES Act funds appropriation of $7,000? If there's no questions, is there any further discussion wanted? Then this item has no vote. And is there consensus that this item get moved to the January 19th consent agenda?
Yes.
Yep.
I say yes too. So that is consensus at least. Unless Lloyd, do you have a problem with it? Okay.
I just realized my video was off when I was shaking my head. So.
All right, we are at item number 18.
Be a good time for a break.
That's what I was just gonna say. Because this is a little bit longer, as Ms. Attack has to. It's got multiple appropriations and resolutions in there. So this is normally a 15-minute break, correct?
Yeah, maybe come back at 8:10, maybe.
Or let's say 8:15.
Okay.
Because it's almost 8. And so we'll be back at 8:15. Meeting temporarily suspended.
Okay.
I'm going to make up my own designations.
recess.
We're in recess, but I don't get to play.
I'm out.
Is everyone back? Yes. I bring us out of recess. We are at item number 17 on the agenda. It's resolution and appropriation. There'll be two separate votes on the, oh, wait a second.
Item 18.
We just did 17, sorry. I was checking things off as I went. We're on number 18, which is also a resolution and appropriation. Two appropriations in one resolution, so there'll be three separate procedures. The first is it's the appropriation of the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships Program, home budget allocations for FY 2020 and 2021, and minor amendment for Action Plan 2020-2021. Erin Attack, our grants coordinator, will be presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Attack.
So on May 4th, 2020, City Council reviewed and approved the CDBG home budget as part of the 2020-2021 annual action plan. As an entitlement community, the city is required to submit this annual action plan as part of the 5-year 2018 consolidated plan, basically the CDBG playbook, outlining the goals and objectives for the CDBG and home program. Just as a recap, the CDBG programs that were approved by City Council were the Ridge Street Priority Neighborhood, the Community Investment Collaborative Financial Management Program, the Thomas Jefferson Area Coalition for the Homeless Coordinated Entry Systems Program, the Albemarle Home Improvement Program Homeowner Rehabilitation Program, and the CDBG Administrative and Planning Program, or not program, but staffing position, and the grants citizen participation line item. For home, City Council approved the Albemarle Home Improvement Program Homeowner Rehab and the Habitat for Humanity Down Payment Assistance Program. On October 22nd, 2020, the city received a corrective notice from HUD. So since issuing the original CDBG and home award, HUD discovered an error in the formula calculation for CDBG and home. This was an error stemming from issues from HUD field offices in California. A corrective notice was issued to the CDBG and home recipients by HUD. So this resulted in a decrease in the city's grants by an amount representing 99.97% of the total CDBG and home grants for fiscal year 2020. In other words, initially the city was given an award of CDBG $419,367, and for the home consortium, $644,752, which is $80,594 for the city. The new corrected amounts are CDBG $419,303 and home consortium $644,601, and the city portion being $80,575.13. The new budget change will have very minor to no impact on the current subrecipient budgets. And in accordance to the city's citizen participation plan, we have to undergo a minor action plan amendment. So I'm available for any questions you may have.
And this was the section that was originally on our consent agenda, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So are there any clarifying questions at this point about anything?
So it sounds like a lot of people are going to have to make this adjustment.
Yes, yeah. Not just the city.
Yeah.
Thank you for jumping on it and making it so quickly.
No problem.
If there are no clarifying questions from council, I will bring up that our first item then is item A, an appropriation of funds for the 2020-2021 Community Development Block Grant of $419,303. First of two readings. Is there any discussion that would like to be happened by council at this point?
No, I'm comfortable with that going to consent.
Okay,
Yeah, so am I.
excellent. Michael, comfortable with it going to consent for January 19th?
Yep.
Excellent. That will be moved to the consent agenda then. Our second item then is also the appropriation of the 2020-2021 home funds of $121,186, $121,186.97. First of two readings. Any further discussion on this item?
None here. Comfortable with consent.
Then we will, as long as everyone is okay, it will also move to the January 19th consent agenda.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So then next we go to the resolution C, which is the approval of the FY 2020-2021 minor annual action plan amendment. This is the one reading of which we will need to vote. So first, I invite a motion.
I move we adopt the resolution approving the FY 2020-2021 minor annual action plan amendment.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Then Ms. Thomas, I call for a vote.
Councilor Payne,
Yes.
Councilor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Councilor Hill,
Yes.
Great, that passes unanimously. On to item number 19. Also from Ms. Attack here, it's a resolution appropriation, the Community Development Block Grant CDBG Home Investment Partnership Program, Home Minor Action Plan Amendment FY 2020-2021, and appropriation of CDBG 10th and Page Priority Neighborhood Funds. I invite Ms. Attack to once again present.
Thank you. Okay, so back in 2017, the 10th and Page Priority Neighborhood Task Force recommended several neighborhood improvement projects for City Council consideration. There was extensive community engagement and outreach work that was done to gauge the priorities of the neighborhood. I'll name a couple of them. So there was 10th and Page Task Force meetings, 10th and Page neighborhood meetings, the West Haven Community Day, that was a community-sponsored event that was hosted by a local nonprofit to survey responses by community members to see what type of activity they wanted for the neighborhood. The neighborhood online survey, CRHA board meetings, the temporary site survey sign, the 400-person mass site mailing, city staff consultation, so on and so forth. City Council reviewed the 10th and Page Task Force recommendations and approved the 10th and Page Park Pedestrian Safety Accessibility Improvement Project at $282,000.31. Funds were proposed to improve the area located at the corner of 8th Street Northwest and Hardy Drive. This area serves as the entry point for the 10th and Page neighborhood. The project proposed the creation of a passive neighborhood park and enhancement of the aesthetic and safety of the area. The project consists of drainage and grading work, installation of benches, a guardrail, green infrastructure like trees and plantings, ADA improvements to enhance pedestrian improvements, and removal of architectural barriers. Right now, the 10th and Page Park is nearly complete, but requires a minor budget modification to allow for final completion work. This final completion work that I'm talking about includes minor consultation fees and final change orders. The activity is also attached to HUD Regulation 24-570-902A and would require that all completion work be done late January, early February. Staff consulted with HUD CPD representatives and recommends that council proceed with the budget modification using $116,053.17 of the 2020-2021 Ridge Street Priority Neighborhood Funding. For fiscal year 2022-2023, staff also recommends that council allocate the $116,053.17 back to Ridge Street Priority Neighborhood Funding, since they are already the designated priority neighborhood for that year, to allow for completion work for their respective neighborhood improvement project. Due to the attachment of Davis-Bacon requirements, CDBG federal dollars are the only set of funds that can be used to make the budget modification. I did want to see whether other sets of funding could be used in place of CDBG, but unfortunately, due to that federal Davis-Bacon requirement, CDBG was the only option. Again, as a reminder, the Davis-Bacon federal prevailing wage requirements are mandatory and require contractors and subcontractors who are working on federally funded jobs to pay their labor wages and benefits no less than what other locally pay their workers for similar projects. Back in 2017, the land acquisition for the property adjacent to the project site from the Norfolk Southern Railway Company caused a timeliness delay, violating HUD 24-57902A, which is the timeliness requirement for CDBG. Essentially, lack of communication and delays from the sale of the land for this park project was the main cause of the rule violation. As a result, the 10th and page budget was negatively impacted due to the timeliness infraction, causing this budget shortfall. That's where the $116,000 ended up being missing. Today, myself and Tim Mosh, the 10th and page project manager from Public Works, are here for any additional questions you guys may have.
Are there any other further questions on this?
Is there fairly decent confidence that the timeliness of the project would be able to proceed without any other impacts and revenue losses caused by a lack of timeliness when it comes to that regulation?
So weather plays a big impact, but HUD has been pretty cooperative, especially with COVID. The contractors have also been pretty great as far as moving this project along, since there is that federal timeliness component to it. I don't know, Tim, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, at this stage, we're at the 85 to 90% completion. The contractor, as Aaron says, has been very cooperative, fighting against weather and other things. The remaining work is a little bit of sidewalk and a fair amount of landscaping, which cannot be done until probably March. And so their intent is to finish all the hardscape construction, and as soon as planting is allowed, so that we have plants that will survive, they will finish that.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what was the piece of land acquisition that belonged to the railroad? Do you happen to know that offhand?
Not off the top of my hand. I'm not sure if you remember, Tim. I would need to look that up. And
yeah, my recollection is it may be the strip of property, and of course neither Aaron nor I were involved in the project when this happened, but it was the strip of the property along 7th Street coming down towards Hardy.
Okay. I was just curious. That's just curiosity at this point, because I'm familiar with that park space, and I was just confused that some of that, I thought the whole amount had been owned by the city many years ago, but thank you very much. And thank you for working on this with the problem involved. Counselors, are there any other questions or discussion? Or questions, actually?
None here.
There will also be 3 different pieces to this as well.
And Keena just sent us just a document because I think there was different versions of what was posted online, and I just happened to notice the most recent version online had something duplicated instead of because these things got really confusing when we moved them from consent, and so she'll up line, but we have the most recent version for those of us who might have pulled it at a different time. I know I had something printed last week, and there's just different versions, so I'm just letting us all know that whatever she just sent is the most recent version of that.
Okay, I think I have the correct
There was
version.
memos that looked very similar, and I think that at one point we had 2 of the similar ones were pasted back to back, and so I just asked her because I don't usually use the online version because I have mine printed, but I just happened to see the online version when we had our latest version posted. Might have mistakenly had 2 of the same, and so we have the latest in our inbox, and it's fine. I'm just letting you know for the public's sake that we will update that so that they have both of those memos on the current online version. Just want to clarify.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. All right. So if there are no more clarifying questions from council, for the appropriation, do I need to invite a motion? It's not on for.
That's a first of 2.
First.
Just a first reading.
Okay. So this was the appropriation of the funds for the 2020-2021 CDBG 10th and Page Priority Neighborhood. This is the first of 2 readings. There's no further council discussion on this item. Does everyone feel comfortable moving it to the January 19th consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we have a resolution which does need a vote. And that is the CDB. So if somebody, I am going to invite a motion.
This is for the funds transfer.
Yes.
I move that we adopt a resolution for the CDBG Ridge Street Priority Neighborhood 2022-2023 funds transfer of $116,053.17.
I'll second.
Councilor Payne,
Yes.
Councilor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Councilor Hill,
Yes.
That is unanimous and passes. Next is a resolution. I invite a motion for the resolution FY 2020-2021 minor annual action plan amendment.
So I move we adopt the resolution.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Thomas, would you call a vote, please?
Councilor Payne,
Yes.
Councilor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Councilor Hill,
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously as well. We are now on to item 20, general business. Actually, I'm sorry. First, Ms. Tack, I appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much.
And your cat likes it too.
Yeah, this is, I know the federal guidelines are very particular. They require its own skill set, even of just, knowing that stuff. And I appreciate that you have fixed some of these issues that we have had.
Thank you.
So on to general business. Number 20 is a report the Land Use and Environmental Planning Committee 2020 report. I invite Lauren Hildebrand, Director of Utilities, to present.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and councilors. In 1986, the Planning and Coordination Council, also known as PAC, was established with the purpose of promoting cooperation in planning and community development among the city of Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and the University of Virginia. Late last year in November 2019, City Council, the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, and UVA approved dissolution of the PAC and established the Land Use and Environmental Planning Committee, which we often refer to as LUPEC, in order to broaden PAC's collaboration beyond land use and to include environmental and sustainability topics. In addition, LUPEC allows professional staff to develop solutions on a continuous basis with regularly scheduled reports to the leadership of the three agencies. Prior to the major COVID pandemic, LUPEC met in person for the first time in February 2020, and then virtually for the remainder of this past year. The committee decided on topics to concentrate on in the future and also identified what needed more detailed discussion. LUPEC's annual 2020 report is attached to the council memo and includes the highlights of these meetings. I might add that the agendas and the action items are also listed on the Thomas Jefferson District's website for the community to review. In addition, a charter was finalized by the membership, and that's also attached to the council memo. And this charter included details on how we conduct ourselves during the meetings, and it also included setting up a planning group committee, which is a smaller group of the larger membership that actually sets up the future agendas based on the topics that the larger committee designates. When LUPEC was established by the three agencies, it was recommended that after 1 year, this new committee and its process be evaluated to determine whether it is achieving its stated objectives. Since the membership's attention shifted to responding to the COVID pandemic pretty early on and the emerging needs of our community, LUPEC's work did not advance as we all expected. Therefore, LUPEC is proposing the evaluation of achieving its stated objectives be postponed 1 year. I might add, since I wrote this memo, the committee has already set up its agenda for the first two meetings of the new year in January and February. We plan on meeting monthly starting in the new year. And the topic for the January meeting is where we are all in very close proximity along the Fontaine Avenue corridor, where all the agencies are in close proximity. We need some coordination and further discussion. Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority have a proposed water line that crosses that corridor. The city has a streetscape that they're working on their design of on Fontaine Avenue. UVA is doing modifications to the Fontaine Avenue Research Park, and Albemarle County and VDOT are working on modifications to the 64 Business 29 intersection. So all of that is going to be coordinated and discussed by this committee in January. Staff recommends approval of the resolution by council to postpone evaluating whether the committee has achieved its stated objectives until the end of 2021. And if you folks have any questions, I'm available. Thank you.
As one of the, sorry.
Oh, no, we'll invite any questions or comments.
So as one of the counselors that sat on the PAC when we came to this decision, I just want to, thank this group for the work that they've done, obviously during a very challenging year. And I'm just really encouraged just to see the progress that has been made during this time and what you've just laid out for what's planning in the year ahead. And I certainly personally don't have any concerns with this. And I'm just curious, well, I guess our next update would not be then for that year, or was it possible we might be able to kind of get a check-in at some point in the meantime?
So I think envision that we would give updates to the three agencies moving forward as you might have meetings semi-annually. And we were expected to give our report at your meeting. It was either of the three agencies in October or November this past year, but you had such a full agenda. We were asked to put it on future agendas of council and the county's board of supervisors, which is what we're doing tonight.
Yeah, I remember like our intention was to try to line up with those semi-annual. So I would hope that we might find ourselves in a scenario where we're going to have that in the next 6 months. And then we can take advantage, because it'd be great to kind of have that conversation with all three bodies. But I understand that that was a constraint right now. But thank you.
So there's no vote on this. Was there any other feedback you were hoping for tonight, Ms. Hildebrand? I mean, just.
We do have a resolution, but are we supposed to verbally just show support?
Mine says report, no vote.
Right.
Feedback, question mark.
I would, and Ms. Hildebrand jump in, I would ask that council adopt the resolution in there, because the recommendation was supposed to come back at this meeting, but due to COVID, they're asking for an extra year.
Okay.
And I might add that the Board of Supervisors also adopted a similar resolution at their earlier meeting in December.
I do apologize. I didn't see that resolution in there.
That's fine. There's a lot going on this agenda. No worries.
5 pages?
Your version is.
Yeah.
So can I make that motion then?
I was just going to invite that motion.
Okay. I move we adopt the resolution to support postponing evaluating the objectives for the Land Use and Environmental Planning Committee. Lubeck.
I will second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Thomas, would you take the vote, please?
Councilor Payne,
Yes.
Councilor Snook,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Now we are at other business. Is there any other business items for consideration at this time?
Vice Mayor McGill, before we go
Yes.
to that, I just, I see Mr. Ikafuna is a panelist here, and just wanted to thank him as well for his participation in this, in LUPEC, I guess is how to pronounce it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. I always want to make sure people are getting the credit and getting it publicly. Thank you. Other business. Is there any other business? Are there any other business items at this point to be considered? All right. Then, Mr. Wheeler, we'd like to open up matters by the public.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mcgill. We're at the end of the meeting where we take matters from the public. Each person can have up to 3 minutes to speak to council on any topic. And we have 2 hands up. If you'd like to get in line, click the raise hand icon in the Zoom webinar. First up is Robin Hoffman. Robin, you're back on with council. You've got 3 minutes.
Hi. I didn't mention this, but I think it might have something to do with LUPEC. So the Botanical Garden of the Piedmont is a new name for McIntyre Park Botanical Gardens. And the reason is because of me. Actually, I received a personal letter from one of their directors thanking me for the support for the garden through volunteer efforts. We are getting there, but we still have a lot of work to do. Hope to see you soon. And the reason why I got that letter was because it occurred to me that McIntyre Park, Paul McIntyre, had segregated that park. And for them to carry on with the name of McIntyre for the Botanical Gardens meant, again, somehow to me, because of Michael Payne and my interview on my TV show, that in fact it would be a continuum of that idea. So I was volunteer for the Botanical Gardens, and I'm also a climate activist. And I think that the community would like to volunteer if they knew that, in fact, it wasn't the name of McIntyre. And then also included, I offered the Jefferson School, Andrea Douglas, to help curate it so that the artists could come and maybe even develop an amphitheater and things like that for all of the community. So LUPAC really interests me because I was hoping that if you do parks in the future, to include the community as a voice in making not only making the names of the parks, but also of being employed to be able to build up so that they can feel like, it's their park more than somebody just putting a park in there, and then, take care of it. Anyway, so I just want to say that because things are changing. I think people, and this is an opportunity, that's what I meant, that this is a time when people are really introspective and they're seeing that, the history of things and how things were in Charlottesville and are still, and that it can be changed. We just have to all pitch in, I think, and that inclusiveness could come with planning. So if you do the parks, it shouldn't be like somebody from Richmond come in. Have the people do the park. Okay, that's just something that occurred to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman.
And we have a couple more hands up. First, I'll go to Walt Heinecke. Walt, you're on with City Council. You've got 3 minutes.
Oh, thanks. Your LUPEC discussion reminded me of something else about affordable housing. If UVA was to be taxed on its city holdings, you'd probably get about $10 million a year extra in revenue. And I know you can't control that. But I would like to ask you to start becoming a little bit more assertive. I know you can't tell UVA what to do, but sometimes I think it's important for you to use your bully pulpit and to remind them that they have an obligation to contribute to affordable housing in this town, because they have property in this town and they're not paying taxes on it. So I hope you'll be a little bit more assertive about that. Second issue, I was wondering if it'd be possible for you, since people are really concerned about the city's kind of disarray right now with positions, if you could ask interim city manager Blair to give an update on major searches at every meeting. Like, it'd be nice to know where we are on the city manager search, the human rights director search, the executive director for the Civilian Police Review Board, the assistant city manager for equity. It'd be nice for us to know where we stand on these things and to figure out where we are. Lastly, I think you heard tonight in the first public comment that the public would like for you individually to weigh in on what happened with the press release, the press conference by the police chief. And I think, if people are asking, you should actually do it and respond to what they're asking you to do. I think it's important for you to take a position. I also think we're heading into a period of time where we have to figure out how we're going to make the PCRB fit with state regulations, the new state regulations. And it's really important that you show some public leadership on this, even if it's just a show of intent that you intend as a city council to move forward with the strongest reorganization of the ordinance to fit with the enabling legislation that the General Assembly just offered us. So part of this is you showing some leadership publicly. I know there are some reasons to not do that, but I think we're getting beyond that at this point. There's enabling legislation, and that enabling legislation changes the nature of the game. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heinecke.
And there are not any hands raised right now. I saw Gloria Beard had her hand up and then it went down. Now it's back up. Miss Beard, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. You've got 3 minutes with council.
All right, I want to address something I asked last week about doing something for the seniors. And so I never did get a yes and I didn't get a no. I just got that we weren't tax exempt, that little organization. So I asked the council, could they do something for these people? And the place we picked this time, because we're not finished yet. I mean, we care about this community and its people. And I wish y'all would feel like we feel. It makes me sad. I'm so stressed. Y'all just don't know how it look like people are forgotten. The city, everywhere I go, I see things tore up, things being built up. And I'm like, Lord, the people that been here and live here, we're going to be the forgotten people. It's like they pushing us out. You don't have no neighbors. That you can talk to, and we can't go nowhere. What the devil are we supposed to do? So anyway, back to what I was telling you all about the people that's in the nursing home. Seniors living right now. We're not at the nursing home yet. We doing the one down here where Mary Carey is. And so we have started, JoJo, myself, Katrina, and Carolyn. We've been working on some bags. And so I put it out. We put it out last night on Facebook. And we have replies from the city. One young lady just gave us 35 little fleece blankets for the people. And I have 2 more friends of mine on Facebook that respond. And another one wanted to help, but she couldn't. So can't y'all do something for this town? And I want to see y'all happy. We want to be happy. And I just feel like we are being pushed aside and nobody cares. Like I told you last week, you got the power. You got to use it. Y'all can make decisions, can't you? And I would like to have an answer about this project that we asked you to help. Can y'all do something for these older people? I'm old too. I'll be 71 years old my next birthday in March. So I see myself where they are, sitting up in a room with nobody to talk to. So the council, y'all can do something. Do y'all ever go to these places and visit these people anywhere, any of them? It's a sad situation out there. I'm still on? Well, I'm finished.
You are still on, Miss Beard.
But please, somebody answer my question. You make me feel like you're ignoring me, like you don't care what I'm saying. Because I asked this question last week, and I didn't get no real answer. All I got about y'all giving us any kind of funds was we are not a 5 point, whatever that thing is, and that was a tax thing, and we are not tax exempt. So somebody tell me something. Can you all do something as people? You don't have to be city council all the time. Be people, human beings.
Miss Beard,
Yes.
I do, as regretfully, the city can only be giving funds out to official organizations. We have to be very careful with our tax dollars.
I know, but don't you know something, baby? My tax dollars still paying for stuff too. Even though I'm retired, they still taking taxes out of me. Don't think not.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have to hand it to us personally. I say as a y'all are an organization, y'all are city government. Can't y'all do something for the people?
We've definitely been trying to do quite a few things for the people, especially.
But we don't know it, baby. I haven't heard nothing because I keep up with what's going on in this city. What are y'all doing?
We've been putting a lot of the funds recently into emergency programs to try to help as many people as possible with food and shelter. And there's been But the academic and the Human Services Division they've put a couple of $1 million, from what I understand, back into the community to try to make sure that people don't lose their homes.
I understand that, but I was not talking about that right now. I was talking about the elderly people that's sitting in their rooms for Christmas with nobody caring. And even if you didn't do nothing but give them a little stocking. That's what I'm speaking of. I know y'all doing all that other stuff, honey, but you don't understand. I worked with people all my life. I worked with sick people all my life. People in nursing homes, in the hospital, people in their homes. So I know what people feel. I work with older people all my life.
And I used to go into the nursing homes and assisted livings often, ma'am, until COVID.
Well, I didn't say go in there. I said take them something that somebody could hand out as a gift for the people. I didn't say go. You can go after this is over, I hope.
I hope so too. And what we can do tonight is make sure people in our community know about what you and the other ladies are doing.
Oh yeah, well, y'all let them know because I put something out there. JoJo did too. I mean, and people reply, but see, and you know, we have to take care of each other because it sounds like sometimes I feel like I'm all alone in this world. I'm in a different world, and I get sad. I'm telling you, I'll be depressed because I love people. And I love helping people. And I don't like to keep on saying it's just business. So yeah, I know y'all building up everywhere I go. It's building this and building that. But it sure ain't for me because I couldn't afford none of these buildings they building. But I'm talking about just a little gift or card or something saying we love you, we care. And they was part of the city one time. They came to those meetings. They got old like me. I'm getting old, but I still try. And I'm so sad now talking to you because it seems like y'all thinking maybe you don't understand what I'm saying. Maybe it's because you got power like that. You're gonna use it for all these. You have to do something human sometime. Something human. I know you got to give money to this organization, this fund, this building. I know that, but I'm talking about the human part of it, the people. Sometimes it's nice to be personal.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, my God. Wait till you get my age. You'll see.
Yes, ma'am.
It's sad. It's so sad.
We'll try to do better.
I hope so. Because this is one day it's going to be you all. Any of y'all still got your mothers and fathers? Think about them.
Just lost my stepfather recently, ma'am.
I'm so sorry to hear that. So you know how that feel. But I'm hoping he was able to be around family. But some of these people die alone.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I have to.
It ain't your fault. I'm not blaming no one person for nothing. But I'm saying y'all have some kind of power. Sometimes just if you act, you know how people just dress up like Santa Claus. You can't do that now. But you can leave something at the place for the people and say, this is from our city council. Merry Christmas and God bless you. That's all you have to do. Even if it was just a card, they love that kind of stuff.
Thank you for the idea.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. And
all right. But you know, I want you to think about it really much, and if you believe, pray about it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, there are no other hands raised.
Thank you.
Oh, now we had one. Mr. Gathers was flirting with it. Don Gathers, you're on the City Council.
Yeah, I may have missed something, but did during appropriations and allocations, did we, during this robust time with calls of defunding the police, did we just allocate money to go to the police that had already worked overtime towards their budget? Is that what we did?
Mr. Gathers, what we did is we had CARES funding that legally could pay for emergency services salaries, personnel salaries. And with only a few days left of being able to spend that by paying about $900,000 towards the $11 million in emergency personnel salaries, which we had already budgeted for, we were able then to legally spend that money within the few days we had left of spending it.
And those are expenses that had already been made. In doing that opens up that money that had already been spent to be either cover drops in revenues created by COVID, or if revenues rebound, potentially capital improvement projects, affordable housing, and other priorities.
Okay, thank you. So then that I believe you just said $900,000, Vice Mayor Mcgill. Is that money earmarked, allocated anywhere in particular? I mean, if we're looking at almost $1 million. I think the citizens would like to know what the plans are for that, since that money has now been freed up.
Right now, the CARES money is being used to pay for salaries.
Okay.
And I just need to make sure that's very clear for the record that we are not using CARES money for any sort of revenue replacement.
Got that. What I'm speaking of is the money, the funds that had already been budgeted. Since those funds have now been freed up, are there plans for that $900,000 at this point?
Speaking overall, if there's any surplus, it would go back to council to allocate. But part of it is being cautious about, we don't know if there'll be a surplus if COVID devastates the economy over the next few months. But if there is a surplus in the city, it would go back to council to allocate.
And again, I appreciate that, but if that $900,000 had already been budgeted, that means that's money that's already accounted for. So if we now have another $900,000 to cover that, you see what I'm saying? Then what are we doing with that original money that was budgeted?
We are waiting to see how bad our revenue shortfalls are in January. No, that's what that money that's been saved in our general fund then is being for a little bit longer sat on to see how bad it gets with both our business taxes and outstanding restaurant, lodging, and property taxes that are already been doing poorer than what we had originally anticipated.
I certainly understand that. And I think that, and I'm sure that you all are some wise people, so I'm sure that there's been some line item slashing on the budget. At least I can only hope and pray that there has been, because there are so many more worthy causes that $900,000 can go to, rather than rolling it back into things in areas that the citizens have already loudly and clearly said, let's not do that.
Yes, it is not adding to any budgets.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate that clarification. Thank you all very much.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, our next speaker is Valerie Washington. Valerie, you're on the City Council. You've got 3 minutes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Valerie. I am a long-term citizen of Charlottesville, born and raised. I have a quick question in terms of the incident that happened that prompted Brackney to say what she had to say. I was curious on what I'm not familiar with too much of the politics of city council, but if there was any real investigation behind the phone call that prompted the police to come out in the first place to the incident. It was said that there was a man loitering, trying to break into a house and broke into our neighbor's house. And I was curious because we know how this turns out all over the country, where police calls are made, and in some instances, Black men die, Black women die. So I was curious on if there was any in-depth investigation to the 911 call, if there was any repercussions for or any like validity to the phone call in the first place. Was there any evidence of someone breaking into a house? I can't imagine if that was the case, how that person may have felt. But as someone who may not have been guilty of breaking into anyone's house, that could have been an incident that went wrong really quickly.
Thank you, ma'am. I cannot comment on that at this time.
I think it was publicly stated that there was a chain of break-ins in that neighborhood, which is why even some of our personnel were in the neighborhood proactively before, and then that was my understanding. And so that's where I think that some of that was precipitating from. And that's what prompted the call, is what my understanding was originally.
Right.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, the only hand raised right now is Walt Heinecke, who's already spoken in this part of the meeting. If anyone else would like to speak to council, click the raise hand icon. Next up is Abby Guskind. Abby, you're on with council.
Yes, Sina, I'm just going to go back to what Don said, and I'm sure Walt wants to piggyback on that, but your phrase of we're going to sit on this to see how bad it gets. Well, it's already bad, and there's lots of worthy causes out there, and there's people in this community that are screaming for help. Whether publicly when they're trying to pick up the phones, calling the services that they can, that are allocated out there, and there's so many that need assistance and need the help now. So this money, it's sitting there waiting for what? It's just so frustrating that that this council cannot come up with any solutions to help our community and in public housing that need it most. Gloria Beard brought me to tears. That's just our elderly in this community are in desperate need of assistance, and to make a statement to just kind of, you all are sitting there. It's like, there's like eggshells within your homes behind, these Zoom cameras, and nobody wants to step on them. Nobody wants to touch them because it's just too hard and too difficult. Well, freaking life out there for a lot of these people is really difficult. They don't know where they're going to, be able to flip on switches, to turn on their electricity, feed their children. When it gets freezing cold out, if they can just stay warm inside, or how they're going to turn, and to just say, you're sitting on it to see how bad it gets. I'm sorry, I don't know if you just didn't know what to say, because yes, it is really difficult, but those were not the best choice of words that you could have used. These citizens here in Charlottesville need your help now. It's not waiting till January when this money has already been allocated. It's beyond sad. And I don't know where the disconnect is or why you all can't talk to each other, or I had to speak up. So thank you.
If I could, just like a brief overview of the budget situation is COVID has obviously devastated the city's revenues from real estate, meals tax, other areas. And at the beginning, we took about $6 million that would have gone towards capital projects like affordable housing, school reconfiguration, other things, and used that to cover the revenue shortfall. And 3/4 of that money is projected to already have been lost. And that's with uncertainty about what's going to happen. And so I think, I don't want to speak for the vice mayor, but I think we're in a situation where the ability of the city to cover expenses is an unknown question. And we've got CARES Act allocation and other money. We reoriented the Vibrant Communities Fund, the Affordable Housing Fund to cover emergency COVID needs. Food relief money has gone to FAR, the Food Justice Network. Millions of dollars in CARES has gone to rent and mortgage relief, emergency relief fund. And there's been collaborations regionally on some of those things as well. But there's no question about it. Like we've tried to do a lot, but the amount of need and suffering in the community, it's greater than the money we have. And there's always more we can try to partner and do. And we've been trying to do a lot, but the brutal reality is if we look at the amount of need in the community, and unless we're getting support from the federal government, we're not going to be able to meet it all. And I don't say that lightly as an excuse. I think it's been the single most difficult thing for me being on council is just the sense of helplessness or lack of efficacy for what we can do to fully meet the community's needs because of how drastic the pandemic and the economic crisis is and the failure of our federal government to do anything. So I certainly, there's always more to do, but I think that's the perspective that we're coming from. And it's not something, I mean, this has been the most, not to make it about me in any way, but these have been the most difficult months of my life. And I'm sure it's that way for our staff and other counselors, and certainly myself, but I think all of us feel that pain in the community very deeply.
Thank you for stating things better, Mr. Payne. I do appreciate it. I really do.
Vice Mayor Mcgill, Valerie Washington's raised her hand again. I think she had about a minute left on the clock when council started responding. Would you like me to bring her back?
Yes.
Valerie, you're back on with council.
I'm back. Thank you. Sorry, I missed some of the responses to my concern, but just because there were break-ins previously does not mean in that moment someone was breaking into someone's house. And as a long-term resident of Charlottesville and being a parent of a Black child, a Black boy who actually went to preschool with your kids, Heather, but also I don't think it's okay if someone in my family is walking through a specific place and just because it happened before means that it's happening again, means that the police should be called on my uncle, on my father, on my grandfather, or whoever, just because they somewhat look suspicious. Mind you, I don't know what suspicious looks like,
or I just don't know, especially in an area where there is high traffic. There are a lot of UVA students, there are a lot of workers, there are a lot of just different people looking different all the time. So I'm not one to protect BS like this, because we see it all the time around the country. And once again, I know, like we all know, how this could escalate, and it seems to have escalated, not to the extent where someone lost their life, but it definitely could have happened. And while someone could be afraid of their property or themselves, I want to make sure that whoever was walking or minding their own damn business was not profiled because someone was scared because of the color of their skin or because they looked intimidating, whatever that may mean.
Thank you, Ms. Washington.
And council, I don't see any other hands raised.
All right, so at this point, where's so
I have a motion. I have the motion for us to go back into closed session.
Okay, thank you.
Pursuant to section 2.23712 of the Virginia Code, I hereby move that City Council close this open meeting and convene in a closed session as authorized by section 2.23711A8 for consultation with legal counsel to obtain legal advice on council business matters requiring provision of legal advice. And section 2.23711A29 for discussion of the award of public contract to conduct the search for a new city manager and discussion of the terms or scope of that contract, or discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the city.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Thomas?
Councilor Payne,
Yes.
Councilor Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mcgill,
Yes.
Councilor Hill.
Yes. And I told Keena that we'll just close ourselves out afterwards, so she doesn't have to wait, and whatever Brian can do to keep this moving, but also get himself home.
We will keep this webinar running, so you'll come back here for the closed meeting certification.
Great.
Brian?
Thank you. And so we're going to go back to the same Teams link that Sina gave us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.